You are listening to RadioTalkies FM.
Okay, let's dive in here. We've got some really dense, fascinating source material today.
Titans, gods, and the future of man.
Definitely not light reading, as you said before we started, but Jünger offers this incredibly unique way of looking at things, doesn't he? History, time, technology.
Absolutely. He really challenges our, standard ideas about progress and where we fit into the bigger picture of the planet itself.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We want to take these complex sources, act as your guides, and pull out the core insights for you, especially around this really striking idea of his, Earth developing a kind of new skin.
A technological aura, almost. Yeah, that's central to his later thinking. And it's crucial to get this. He's not just talking about, smartphones or computers.
All right, not just gadgets.
No. For Jünger, technology is this fundamental force. Something that's actually reshaping reality, connecting what we do as humans to these huge, almost geological level changes in the Earth.
It's such a different lens. It blends deep time, mythology,
Yeah.
even ecology, but mixed with philosophy. It's definitely not a simple story of linear progress.
No, much more about cycles, transformations, these underlying patterns. You can see influences like Spengler, maybe, but Jünger really zooms in on the technological age itself.
And you have to remember his lifespan, right? Born 1895, lives past the year 2000.
Exactly. Think about the changes he witnessed firsthand. Steam power, electricity, radio, TV, the atomic bomb, space travel, the very beginnings of the digital age.
An entire century of explosive technological shifts. So his perspective isn't just academic, it's lived experience.
Deeply informed by it, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into that core image, this new skin. He actually says Earth is equipping itself with a new unified garment and its form language. What does that look like in concrete terms, physically?
Well, he paints a pretty vivid picture. The Earth is spinning itself with an ever denser net of wires and cables.
You can just picture that, can't you? Telegraph, power lines, now fiber optics crisscrossing everywhere under the oceans.
A literal mesh wrapping the globe. And then he adds the vertical element. A forest of transmitters and receivers grows upwards of antennae.
Ah, yeah. From tiny little ones on our devices to massive cell towers and satellite dishes, they're everywhere, sprouting up.
It's this pervasive physical layer. He sees it just covering everything.
A global entanglement. But he also distinguishes between different types of technology, right? He contrasts the early industrial stuff with the electrical age.
Yes, definitely. He calls that early phase steam power, heavy machinery.
Yeah.
He says it has a brutally titanic character.
Titanic, like huge raw power. You think of those massive noisy factories.
Yeah.
Very visible, very localized.
Like the mythical titans, yeah.
Yeah.
Wrestling with matter.
Yeah.
But then comes electricity, radio, telecommunications, things that are invisible, pervasive. And Jünger sees this as a different style.
How so?
He uses this fantastic analogy. He compares it to the Lilliputians tying down Gulliver.
Ah! With thousands of tiny threads.
Exactly. 1,000 fine, invisible threads. It's still immense power, but it's distributed, subtle, almost unseen. It binds and connects everything in a completely different way than the brute force of the Titans.
That really shifts the feeling. From wrestling giants to this intricate, invisible net, it's not just about the physical stuff anymore.
Precisely. The nature of power and connection changes. And he pushes this idea even further. He suggests that technology starts to, imitate abilities that were once considered non-physical, almost spiritual.
Imitate spiritual abilities. How does he mean?
He draws these parallels, like a telephone wire carrying a voice instantly across distances.
Right.
He compares that to nerve strands.
Okay, like biological transmission.
Yeah. And then wireless transmission, radio waves, satellite signals, he likens that to clairvoyant transmission. Send images, messages instantly, invisibly.
Wow, so things like instant communication, seeing distant events, things maybe once imagined as psychic powers are now being done mechanically.
That's the idea. Technology starts performing functions that used to belong, in mythology or the realm of the uncanny. And this connects to how he uses Heidegger's concept of Gestell.
Right, Gestell, usually translated as enframing, that's a pretty heavy philosophical term. How does Jünger bring it in here?
He borrows that core idea from Heidegger, that technology isn't just a tool. It's not neutral. Its essence isn't just its function, but how it fundamentally orders and structures our reality. Jünger calls it a circumstance backdrop, a framework,
So it's less about the specific device like the phone or the internet and more about how the existence of this technological system shapes how we see and interact with the world.
Exactly. It sort of puts everything into what Heidegger calls standing reserve, making it available, orderable, controllable. Jünger says technology's real task, its proper function, isn't really about solving deep problems. It's more introductory and guiding.
It sets the stage, dictates the terms.
Yeah, it frames reality in a certain way that pushes us towards interacting with the world based on planning, measuring, efficiency, resource management.
And within that framework, this technological skin, Jünger sees some pretty negative effects. He talks about destruction, the flattening, the emptying. What's being destroyed or flattened?
Well, he points to this paradox. Technology brings incredible acceleration, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets faster, connects more, produces more geometric progression, he calls it.
Seems like the opposite of flat or empty.
Right. But Jünger argues this very acceleration leads to a growing sense of monotony.
Monotony. How can things be getting faster and more monotonous?
It's the effect of the Gestell, he thinks. By reducing everything to something measurable, calculable, optimizable, it smooths out the uniqueness. Think about global supply chains making products the same everywhere, or standardized online experiences, or industries just focused on hitting quotas.
Ah, okay. So it's like this hyper-efficient sameness spreads everywhere. Everything gets measured, tracked, focused on records, breaking limits.
But, and this is his key point, it lacks creation in the true sense. It's incredibly productive, yes, but not genuinely creative in a way that adds real qualitative depth or meaning. It's more about replication, optimization, managing things.
Not generating something truly new or unique.
Exactly. It's a world obsessed with clocks, he says, measuring time perfectly, but maybe set for an unknown hour. And he connects all this activity, this building of the skin, to something even deeper. He calls it Antaian unrest.
Antaian, like Antaeus, the giant from Greek myth, son of Gaia, the earth, who got his strength from touching the ground.
That's the reference, yes. Jünger is suggesting that this technological frenzy isn't just human ambition. It's somehow rooted in the Earth itself. A stirring or restlessness within the planet expressing itself through us.
Wow. So we're not just building stuff on the Earth, we're participants in the Earth's own activity.
That's his provocative idea. And in this picture, humanity is positioned as the smartest son of the Earth.
The clever ones, able to build this technological skin.
And he even calls us a guide fossil for a specific geological layer, a layer that might just be starting now.
A guide fossil? Like trilobites mark the Paleozoic or ammonites the Mesozoic. Geologists use them to date rock layers. So our layer, the Anthropocene, is defined by us and our stuff.
Our concrete, our plastics, our networks. Yes, it's becoming a distinct geological stratum. But Jünger highlights a crucial difference between us and, say, diatoms making chalk layers, or ammonites leaving fossils, or even beavers building dams.
What makes the human layer unique in his view?
He says we don't just create the layer, we also penetrate it in a spiritual way.
Spiritually? How do we do that?
Through things like archaeology, history, geology itself. Our search for origins, our digging into the past, our reflecting on where we came from, and our place in deep time.
So no other creature digs up its own past fossils and builds museums about them.
Exactly. That conscious reflection, that investigation of the layers beneath us. Jünger thinks that gives the human layer, and maybe the planet viewed through this human consciousness, a kind of special light. A significance beyond just being another physical deposit.
Okay, so the technological skin is built by us, linked to the Earth's own energy, and it's marked by our unique self-awareness about history and the planet's past. That's a profound shift in how we relate to the world.
It really is. And he argues this technological age leads to a dissolution of boundaries. The Earth becomes boundless and godless ground.
Boundless? You mean like global networks erasing distances, weakening national borders?
That's part of it, the physical side.
Yeah.
But it's also about conceptual boundaries dissolving. He claims that core concepts we rely on, words like war, peace, people, state, even family, freedom, right? They become deceptive.
Deceptive how?
He says they only really apply anymore in what he calls reservations.
Reservations, like protected zones where the old rules still kind of hold, but outside them in the main flow of things, it's different?
Sort of like that, yeah. The logic of the technological framework, the Gestell efficiency, planning, technical feasibility, starts to override those older concepts. What's technically possible or efficient can push aside traditional legal or ethical boundaries more easily in this boundless reality.
The old rule books don't quite fit the new territory.
That's the idea. And tied into this is another key concept he calls the display, or Vorweisung in German.
The display, what's that?
It's this irresistible quality technology has of simply showing off what it can do, the sheer exhibition of possibility. And he argues that this display gains acceptance, even when what's being displayed is really disturbing or challenges fundamental norms.
You mean like the examples he gives, artificial insemination or genetic manipulation, things that mess with basic ideas about life and identity.
Exactly those kinds of things. The simple fact that technology makes them possible, the sheer technical feat on display, starts to normalize them. People accept it just because it can be done, often setting aside deeper questions. And Jünger sees this acceptance of the display, even of unsettling things, as a sign of a profound loss of nomos.
Nomos. That's not just laws on paper, right? It's deeper, like a fundamental sense of order, maybe even cosmic order.
Yes, exactly. The traditional, maybe unwritten, possibly even sacred order that structured human life and the world, that's weakening. And the technological display kind of fills that vacuum, presenting these previously unthinkable possibilities, and their mere existence as technical facts creates a new kind of pressure, overriding the old sense of order.
So this technological skin, it's tied to Earth's deep energy, it dissolves old boundaries, it challenges our basic concepts through this relentless display, and it signifies a loss of fundamental order. Where does this leave us in terms of, say, history or even the divine?
Well, Jünger makes another striking connection. He links the growing power and technological activity of humanity, this Gestell, this skin, to the retreat, or even disappearance of personal gods from the earth.
The godless ground. So as human tech power grows, the divine presence recedes.
That's how he frames it, a kind of historical or metaphysical shift in balance. But importantly, he doesn't see this as total human mastery. Far from it.
How so?
He stresses that despite all the planning and control technology allows, accidents, disasters, catastrophes still happen. They reveal the limits of planning. They show there's still a need for, or reality of, deeper determinations of fate.
Fate still has a role, even in our hyper-planned world.
Yes. And maybe the most telling point is this. Despite all the power, the control, the dazzling display, Jünger observes an increase in world anxiety, a kind of background fear. He calls it an expectation compulsion, initiation pain.
More anxiety. Even with more technology, that seems backwards again. Shouldn't control reduce fear?
Logically, you'd think so. But Jünger connects this growing anxiety to the unpredictable, the uncanny things that seem to emerge alongside technology. He mentions seeing vexing, anxiety-provoking objects, sometimes in huge numbers.
What kind of objects?
He leaves it a bit ambiguous, maybe deliberately so, but he adds significantly, whether they are good or evil, invented or real. There's also an increase in ugly, ominous sounds. It's the glitch in the system, the inexplicable event, the potentially sinister thing that pops up within the supposedly rational, controlled technological world.
The ghosts in the machine, almost.
You could say that. And underlying it all is that growing monotony, the world filled with clocks measuring time perfectly, but maybe counting down to something unknown, something we anxiously anticipate without quite knowing what it is.
So this whole picture, it's way beyond just a critique of gadgets. It's a vision of technology as a force driving this massive transformation of the Earth and what it means to be human, tied to the planet's energy, changing our reality, shaking our concepts, bringing power, but also anxiety.
It's definitely Jünger's very specific, very intense perspective, seeing these changes not just as things we are doing, but as part of a much larger, maybe cyclical shift. Guided by forces we don't fully grasp or control, he really wants you to see the wires, the screens, the networks as symptoms of something profound happening to the planet and therefore to us.
Which really brings us back to that final, maybe unsettling thought for you listening to this. If Jünger's right, if technology is becoming Earth's new skin, a sign of the planet's own deep stirring, what does that really imply about us? Are we just the clever agents building this skin, instruments of a planetary process like the coral reefs or the forests were in their time? Or does our consciousness, our ability to look back, to question, to understand history, to do archaeology on ourselves, give this new technological layer a unique meaning? Does our awareness infuse this skin with something more, something human, maybe even spiritual? What in the end does the Earth itself want from this transformation that we are so central to creating? You have been listening to RadioTalkies podcast. Until next time, stay tuned for more. See ya.